backup. We literally have fail safes on top of fail safes. That's why I was like, record.
Got you.
So.
All right. Well, this is episode 5 coming to you live straight from a Shared Universe podcast studio located in Eatontown, New Jersey. You are listening to the Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Master Chris Malarkey, 5th degree black belt in traditional Taekwondo and eternal student of the martial arts. Today, I am joined by not just one, but two Gracie Satellite School University Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu students. This is going to be a great episode. As you know, I have a striking background. I do not have a grappling background, so this is going to be a great conversation. Before we go any further, I want you guys to hit that like, subscribe, or follow button located somewhere on your screen. That way we can keep bringing you this content, this amazing guests, and upcoming news on future episodes and whatnot. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my man, Johnny Garcia, and immediately to my right, Bartek Tabaszewski, who are both Gracie University students located in Ronin Athletics, which is an incredible martial arts school located in Manhattan, in the process of relocating, as a matter of fact. So we're going to be keeping our eyes tuned for that. They'll fill us in on that toward the end of our episode today. Johnny's been practicing for about a little bit over 2 years, give or take. Just so he's more recent in the game, but a blue belt nonetheless. It was my one of my instructors while I was there. And then we have Bart, who's been practicing martial arts for a little bit longer, about 8 years, who's also wrestled in high school and has picked up Thai kickboxing, Muy Thai and kickboxing, and he's got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background pretty down-packed, and he's a brown belt. We'll talk about the belt system and all that stuff as we go. But, yo, guys, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you guys here. Thank you for traveling all the way from the city on this rainy day to come meet me here. Welcome.
We appreciate the invite. That's for sure.
Of course, man.
It's nice to get out of New York.
I figured it might be. I think the last time I was there was like literally about a year ago. I think the last time I went to just the city in general. But how is the city with everything going on with the pandemic? Is it a ghost town or?
Yeah.
The city mostly. Like uptown around where I live is not. It's kind of the same, but downtown definitely looks like a ghost town.
Gotcha.
I compare it to like what's it called? The Batman city?
Gotham, yeah.
So interestingly enough, Midtown looks more like what Johnny's block normally looks like.
That's awesome, though. But like, you guys are good during this whole thing. That's the first thing I always want to make sure with guests, especially with all this craziness going around. But so Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu backgrounds. How did you guys get started in the martial arts? Why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Why not anything else? Why have you guys stuck with BJJ? You could take it in any order.
I like around 2018, like beginning of 2018, I was powerlifting.
Gotcha.
I was focused on it.
Right.
I wanted to compete as well, but it got to a point where the people who I was training with, they stopped going, and I didn't kind of have the same drive.
Got it.
So I was like, I want to like learn how to defend myself, because I would always get into situations where what wouldn't allow me to move forward is that fear of like, something actually happening.
The what if factor.
Yeah, because I didn't even know how to strike.
Gotcha.
Just the way we would stand and, growing up fighting with your brothers.
Yeah.
But so then I like YouTube, just self-defense, ran into Henner and Hidong. Well, actually, prior to that, I would always listen to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes,
and he would always emphasize Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah,
like
he's big on that.
The power of it. So I'm like, let me check this out. And check it out. So I looked up on YouTube. I found Henner and Hidong. They were basically breaking down the combatives program.
Right.
And they were talking about distance management.
Right.
So I found that cool. I'm like, oh, snap.
Right.
So, like, for a couple weeks, I would watch their videos, and I was like, let me look for a CTC. Because, of course, I can't go to the headquarters in California.
Right.
And I found Ronin, and I walked in. I remember December 10th, 2018, and I never stopped.
That's what's up, man. So your anniversary just came up, too.
Yep,
So there you go. Congrats, man. And how's your ride been so far at Ronin?
Amazing. Like, I'm telling you, from the first time that I went, Bart wasn't the one. Bart didn't do the 10-minute intro. One of the other guys who was there. And I never stopped going. I was excited. Like, it felt great. Like, wow, I can't believe how this works. And
what is it about jiu-jitsu to you that kept you or is keeping you there? Because you're still practicing and still teaching. Of course, you for people listening, Johnny was also my instructor and gave me this 10-minute intro, which is one of the reasons I ended up staying with you guys, because I tried a bunch of BJJ schools prior to me coming to the city, so that was one of my factors. But what about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has kept you there and keeping you going?
The art, like just that, of course the friendships,
right.
Because I played baseball in high school,
right,
and a little bit in college, that competitiveness and just like the team,
gotcha,
that has kept me, and just like the connection with like all the techniques, like the way everything's broken down, and it's art. I love art,
gotcha.
So I see it like art.
Beautiful.
And it's just, I don't know, like the more I do it, the more I fall in love with it.
Nice.
Like Bart's probably annoyed every time I tell him like, "Yo, bro, I feel so good." Like, bro, I love training or this or that. Like, it's something that's constantly on my mind. So like,
gotcha.
It's beautiful.
We're gonna touch on some specifics there too. I got specific questions for you guys today. Bart, let us know what your whole history with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, your relationship with that has been. What got you started? What's keeping you going? You instructed Ronin Athletics for the most part, so you've always been kind of like the senior lead teacher underneath the main guy. Shout out to Christian Montes from Ronin Athletics. Big shout out to Christian. Love that guy. So yeah, tell us, fill us in, man.
So I'm a little different from Johnny, is that I want to be a fighter first.
Okay, gotcha.
One of the first, I watched this there used to be a show, I think, on MTV or something, Bully Beatdown.
Okay.
And it was like a funny show where it's like, they got a guy who was a bully and the guys who were bullied, and they went to this show and they got a fighter to fight the bully.
Right,
and
right.
I just thought it was so cool. And then it led me to look up the fighters themselves. And once I started watching MMA fighters, I was like, wow, I want to do this. I think I can do this. So eventually, once I got a stable job, I was able to, I found Ronin. And once I started training, obviously I did wrestling before this even.
Right.
But once I went to Ronin, I was hooked from day one, absolutely. I started doing kickboxing classes and jiu-jitsu classes there, like as many times as I could have. It was maybe like twice a week when I first started. And then I started going, 5 or 6 times a week, like after the first month, and I was hooked. I wanted to do it, I wanted to do it as much as I could, and then my initial goal was to fight, but Christian is very pretty conservative, or he was conservative in a way in that he doesn't want people to fight right away. So in some gyms, if you go to like almost any, I don't say any gym, but some of the gyms you could go into and you can just get a fight like within a month or so.
Wow.
So Christian was like, okay, you can't fight unless you're like a purple belt.
Right.
And I was like, damn, a purple belt? It's going to take me like years to do that. But yeah, I just ended up just training there for a while, and eventually about maybe a year and a half, 2 years in, I started helping out a little bit here and there. And then once I started helping out, first it was like cleaning, and then actually helping to being like assistant coach, kind of like Johnny's doing now.
Yep.
And then actually started teaching my own classes myself. And as I was doing that, eventually I started to compete myself.
That's what's up, man. Now, you mentioned to me earlier that you fought in a local promotion called, I think it was Friday Night Lights?
Friday Night Fights.
Friday Night Fights.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you, back it way up? Was that something that you were doing at the same time you were training at Ronin? Was that,
yes,
or prior to you coming into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's background?
No, so I started both Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing, at Ronin. Like, I didn't have any, besides wrestling, I did wrestling for like a few months. I was still very pretty beginner at it, but once I started training at Ronin, I did all my jiu-jitsu competitions where I did them, after about, let's say, 8 or 9 months in.
Got it.
From a white belt to blue belt. But my first fight wasn't until 4 years in.
Wow.
And I was actually training at another gym while teaching at Ronin.
Gotcha.
So I would train during the day, like around afternoon or so, or around noon, and then around 4 or 5, I would go to Ronin and I would teach.
Wow. That's a busy schedule, man. That's kind of how it has to work, in a sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of training too for people who aren't familiar with that. That's a busy day on the body, for sure. How long were training sessions for you typically?
It depended on the day. Let's say like Monday, I would come in around 10:30. I would do conditioning for a little bit less than an hour. Then I would do the class itself, and
Right.
then usually like a sparring session or something afterwards.
Gotcha.
So it would be 2.5 hours.
Right.
And then maybe I would train jiu-jitsu at Ronin in the evening.
Gotcha. That's definitely a jam-packed schedule for sure. Now, Johnny, you also just competed in your first competition relatively recently. Tell us about that experience for you, man.
Well, to backtrack, so after I started with the combatives program,
Yeah.
which is the program we all start with at Ronin Athletics, the self-defense program. After like about 6 months in, I started master cycle class,
Gotcha.
and that's when because before I started at Ronin, I didn't know that there was a sport aspect to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Gotcha.
I just thought
Gotcha.
of it as just self-defense.
And that's important for people to know that are listening to. Yep.
So once I was hooked. I was like, oh snap! Like I love the self-defense part of it, but
Right.
that sport one, like being able to use my athleticism, my speed, and like with technique,
Right.
it was something about it. So I would always tell Bart like, yo, bro, I want to compete. I want to compete. And I spoke to Christian about it.
Right.
And he told me like give it a little bit of time, wait till you get your blue belt,
Right.
like that. You're not just competing against white belts who might get you hurt, or it's not as competitive. Wait till blue.
Right.
And once I got blue, I got my blue belt in June.
Congrats, man.
And thank you. And
Yeah,
then
man.
I looked up tournaments, and then I booked the tournament probably like 3 weeks before,
Wow.
about 3 weeks before because of the whole COVID
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
So about like early November, I'm like, yo, Bar, I think I want to compete. The fight was probably a couple weeks later, and we focused. Bart would come to my house. I got mats in the house.
Yes, I
Like
saw.
10 by 10 space. Bart would come to the house, and we would like drill certain positions, do positional sparring,
Gotcha.
just to kind of like get me ready. But I find that what helped me perform, like how I performed in that competition, my first competition, was more the mental aspect of it. Like really, like Bart, because of his previous fighting, fighting in the past, he's like, listen, you got to prepare mentally. So start thinking about what you're gonna do. Think
Right.
about like, imagine yourself in the match. Imagine yourself, doing a takedown, then passing, and
Right.
so I would do that. I did that for the whole week beforehand. Even like while I was showering, I was like drilling things in my
Yeah.
head and like imagining the ref putting my hand up,
Yep.
and it happened like just the way I imagined.
Positive affirmations, right?
Like,
Positive affirmations.
visualization.
Visualization.
Legit, and
Very important.
I thought
Very
I thought I
important.
was gonna be nervous because it's not like it's like competing in baseball is different because it's a team sport.
Right.
On the mats, it's just you, right?
Right.
Of course, you have your team, your
Right.
coach.
From a distance.
From a distance, yeah. And Bart coached me. Thank God Bart coached me, And he was there, and it was funny. In the beginning, those first few matches, I could barely hear him. Like
Right.
it was like I couldn't even see the crowd. I was just like
You were focused in. You was
like,
zoned
locked
in.
in.
That's what's up.
And I felt good. Like I felt alive. Like it felt like it was I can't even explain it. I think the more I do it, the better I'll be able to explain it. But it's just different. Like it was.
The fact that you were relaxed for your first tournament, because that's not a common thing for people. And first of anything, especially when you make it competitive, is people are always, nerves are always, sweating, right? I always have to use the bathroom before I go. It doesn't matter how many times I poop before, I gotta go real quick before they call my name. I gotta like get as light as I can possibly be. But those nerves, they've stuck with me, but I don't show it as much now. So I'm a lot more. And I haven't competed in a few years, but I think with the BJJ competitions, that's something I want to get into. What's the difference between a BJJ competition and using BJJ in self-defense? I think that's a big thing that people want to know about, because I know a lot of people have personally asked me that hey, is there a sport aspect to BJJ, or is it all pretty much self-defense? Because it's one of the most effective martial arts out there. Mm-hmm. One of the most effective martial arts out there. And we'll get to that part. But the sport aspect, what's different about the way that the BJJ tournaments are set up?
Well, the way I see it, Bart would definitely probably have a different view. But the way I see it is just in the sport aspect of it. There's techniques in the sport aspect of it that you probably won't be able to use in the self-defense aspect.
Got it.
Right? The self-defense aspect is more like the fundamentals. What's gonna help you survive in the street against someone like, look at me, 5'8", you like 6'4", right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do something I do like if I'm just rolling with Bart,
Right.
You know, seeking for positions and techniques and having fun. Then with you, if I got into a fight with you in the street, then
Straight to business.
straight self-defense, combatives, straight fundamentals.
Right.
And to touch on the fundamentals, I attribute my not success because I haven't had any
I got you.
success,
We know what you're saying,
but just
man.
in regards to just like my success on the mats, I would say.
Yeah.
To the fundamentals that I learned through combatives.
Your base.
The base.
Your base.
Yeah,
It's very
like
important.
The base,
Yep.
all of like the technical get-ups, the
Right.
distance management.
Right.
Stage
Yes.
1 through 4.
Yes.
Keeping someone in your guard, knowing when to push, knowing when,
Yo, the technical get-ups babies do. Because I watched I didn't believe Henner,
They do.
Henner
They
Gracie
really
was
do.
talking about it one day. I listened to Joe Rogan all the time. When I had free time. So I put on the headphones and I heard technical guy. I went to, some website where Henner was talking about babies do it. And I was like, get out of here. So, and my daughter's just turned 2. So she's, still getting up like a baby does, like a toddler. So I watched her one day. She must have been like 1.5 and she did it. And there's no training there. Like there's no, like all I've been teaching her is punch it in, kick it so far. She could do, some of that stuff. But it's ingrained somewhere. Those mechanics are proper. So I was like, oh, he's gone to something there. And then I looked at babies a little differently. I'm like, yo, all the mechanics, like all the perfect mechanics for movement are in that stage. And then we lose them as we go further out.
That's kind of the funny thing is like a lot of movement in jiu-jitsu and sometimes even wrestling or judo or just in martial arts in general, we actually have them like when we're kids, but we kind of lose it.
Why do you think that is?
It's a good question.
This right here, office jobs.
Yes, sitting down.
Stress,
Very
people
important.
not really know how to connect within themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because if you learn to like kind of like not to get too deep, but if you learn to like kind of like search within, then
take it deep, brother. That's what we're here for. Take it deep.
Even just you doing a improper squat would have you thinking like, damn, this doesn't feel right.
Right.
Like this doesn't.
Right.
But because people just kind of live their lives and just go about work and their daily things, you kind of just forget about that. You don't have no sense.
Do you think it's more cultural? Because I know like when I look at my personal view, when I look at the United States and activity it's like everybody I know, I can see when I look down the street, I can see 10 people that are fat or out of shape. Easily, like just like right in front of me. Not saying I haven't been out of shape before, but my parents instilled like a certain level of activity I should have. Like you should be doing, like in my mind, it's almost like a timer. You should be moving. You should be running. You should be doing sit-ups. Martial arts obviously like took that all the way forward. So I can't say that everybody should be doing martial arts. That's not what I'm necessarily pushing. But I see a difference in the way what the U.S. culture is in terms of activity, and then I look at parts of the world like China or Europe where they're thinner, or they're or Spain. When all these places I've traveled to around the world, whether to visit or teach, I've seen such a different like perspective on health, I guess. So I think from my perspective, I think it's cultural to some degree. Obviously, people have problems with genetics, and I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way. But I think the activity in the country could be a lot higher. We promote. There's a lot of sitting, like you were talking, like just what we're doing now. All the sitting. Like I sat for 4 hours this morning. I'm sitting here. I sat to drive. Like it's all the sitting. So now, like me in my mind, I'm ready to get up and run. Like I want to take a 5-mile run. I know I should take a walk when I'm done with the podcast. So I don't know. I guess that's just my purview. What do you think?
When I used to go to this gym and they had an interesting like philosophy on it.
Yeah.
They would always call like this kind of movement or even training. They would call it playing. And I guess the idea was that when we initially, like when we're kids, when we're exercising, we don't really, like it's not so much of a work. We're just playing.
Right.
And when we think about training, we think about it like as as working, as doing, difficult work. But it's and it is. But at the same time, it's it's all about. It's when you break it down, what training is. It's kind of looks like we're still playing.
Right.
Definitely
Right.
is.
Right.
It definitely is.
When
that's
we're doing
different take on it.
jiu-jitsu, or even like the jiu-jitsu movements, it's if you took somebody that never done any martial arts, it kind of looks like it might look goofy even.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
Yeah.
what are these guys doing?
Big time.
But
Big time.
so it is in a way kind of playing, and we definitely lose it because of work and jobs that are just office jobs. But
So then I guess the second question is, what is it about martial arts that keeps us moving? Because we get there are days I know you guys have gone like, yo, I don't want to do this today. You wake up, you're like, last thing I want to do is put on this belt today. Like, it may not be often, but I know I've had my days. I've been practicing 28 years now. There are days where I'm like, yo, I do not want to teach, bro. But like, once I'm done, it's always a surprise to me. Once I'm done doing it, I always feel better. Like,
Yes,
I still
yes,
shadow box
yes.
I still shadow box in my kitchen 12:30 in the morning. Just like if I'm going to go get something from the fridge, typically water, and I go to the fridge or whatever, and I'm moving around, and sometimes like my wife would be like, "What are you doing?" Like I'm like, all right, and I guess it looks like I'm playing, but in my mind I have like obviously a direction, but that's after many years of doing it. But I guess what is it internally, I guess, about the system or structure of martial arts, the way it's designed, that keeps people like us like continuing to do it and keep it moving?
I think it's the movement.
Yeah.
Being that feeling, that good feeling. Like,
So movement's natural then,
Yes.
right? Like it's
I
natural.
also think it's like the community aspect of it.
Yeah.
Right, because
That's true, too.
Imagine like I remember going to like just a regular gym just to lift
Yeah.
weights. The first time I was there, I didn't want to come back, to be honest. I did come back,
I hear
but you're kind of there by yourself, and
Right.
you just have to motivate yourself to do it. And obviously you need self-motivation, but the community aspect definitely helps in that.
Sure.
I'm sure like when Johnny first came in, we welcomed him, and when I first came in, I felt very welcome, and you obviously make friends there. You meet people from obviously different kinds of backgrounds, but we all share the same like passion for jiu-jitsu or just martial arts in general. I think that brings us together, and I think that, and we also like hold each other accountable when we train. If Johnny's doesn't come one day, like, hey Johnny, where were you on Thursday? He's like, yeah man, sorry, I'm gonna make sure I'll be there next time.
It's true. And to touch on what Bart's saying, like when I came in, like so I grew up with 3 brothers, 2 little sisters. I mean, I have more siblings, but like in the house,
Got you.
it was a lot of us. So, but because we always fighting.
Right.
Once you get into like high school, 8th grade, around that, you start taking your separate routes. So I've always tried to seek that community like that.
Got it.
Like that, just having people around you with the same common interests, wanting to be better at whatever it is that we're doing. So I found that through baseball. And what's funny is that when I played baseball, I didn't like love baseball. I just loved what it gave me, the brotherhood with my teammates, being able to go train with them, being able to get better through them, and as well as me help them. So when that left, I try to find other things. That's why powerlifting. So when I went into Ronin, and through time, everybody, you start falling in love with the environment. I got friends who's a doctor. If I just stay in the hood where I live, I would never have a friend that's a doctor.
Right. Yep, I got you on that.
People who own stuff, people who just talk different, that could give you a different perspective.
Expand your peripherals, doesn't
Yes,
it?
yeah,
About the
yeah,
world.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is. It's like traveling, or almost like, but being able to stay still. Like in a sense, you can experience so many different kinds of people. That's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day, and I always try to connect. That's my thing. I'm built like that. I want to always try to connect someone to someone else. Like, yo, I know someone that can do that for you. No, let me give you the number. No, call them right now. I'm going to give you the number, but call them today. Don't wait. So I love connecting people. And I know so many different kinds of people. To touch on what you said, lawyers, people in real estate, people who are doctors, people who are dentists, people. It just like, and then the list goes on. And it's like, I've taught these people, so it's like I don't feel bad hitting them, like, because we've already built that rapport with each other. You know what I mean? It's mutual. So that is an interesting aspect about what you said.
And the funny thing is, when Johnny mentioned one of our students is also a doctor. The cool thing about it is we used to have a guy who used to be a physical therapist, and he was like a really good one too.
Right.
So at the end of the class, maybe somebody armbarred you a little bit too hard.
Yeah.
He would just lay down and he would check it for you.
Yeah.
And fix you.
Help you out. I love that, man. We have on my end of things, we have a podiatrist who's a foot doctor. So it's like kind of, and he's like an 8th degree black belt. So that's a shout out to Grandmaster Mark Nathanson, who's been in the game for a minute. Was on the Olympic Taekwondo team back in the day. But he would fix people's feet, which is like among the common injuries that we have in Taekwondo. You hit somebody in the, I don't know if you personally hit somebody in the elbow with the top of your foot.
Oh yeah,
I was gonna say, it
hurts.
hurts for weeks, bro.
Yes.
It hurts for weeks. You walk around funny. I used to walk through high school with a limp. I was like, I'm not trying to be like 50 Cent. I'm telling you, it just hurts, man. It just hurts. But it's so interesting. Well, I want to go into a deeper part of the conversation now because I get so many different purviews and questions about what do you think's most effective in the street? Do you think Taekwondo really works on the street? Yada yada. And I got to a conclusion, but I want to hear your guys' view first. So we could start with whoever wants to take the question first. But what martial art? And it doesn't have to be my martial art at all. What do you think is the most effective self-defense tool out there?
The combatives program.
The combatives from Jiu-Jitsu.
Start off, yeah.
Got you.
The fundamentals,
Got you.
knowing like distance management. Because if you look at it, 90% of fights, street fights, end up on the ground, right? And you got to know how to gauge that distance, how to clinch, how to take someone down, right? Especially if the fight's already going to go to the ground. I want to be the one to control the descent, right? I want to be the one to control it. And then once we hit the ground, it's like...
Yeah,
it's like a shark, right? A shark in the ocean.
You're comfortable.
Exactly.
That's where you live and breathe right there. Okay, that's definitely an interesting take. Now you said distance management. Now strikers have, and you know this because you have a unique background because you have both. You live on both sides of the fence. Mm-hmm. So being a striker and a grappler, how can you play off what Johnny just said in regards to effectiveness of martial arts and particular systems?
Yeah, so the interesting is even in striking arts, let's say I'll bring up boxing.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about punching, but what often happens in boxing, the people clinch.
Correct.
Right? Because if you get close, in boxing, if you get close, you know, at some point, let's say if somebody's getting the better of you, if you're on the ropes, what do they usually tell you to do? Clinch, right? Because you can only get so far away from somebody, right? But if somebody's, you know, especially if running against a much bigger opponent or just somebody who's much better, the easiest thing to do is actually get closer. Because if you're so close that I can't really hit you with all the power, then my biggest weapon is kind of diminished, right? And then Jiu-Jitsu is, people think about Jiu-Jitsu of you know, just put two people rolling together. But it's actually a big portion of Jiu-Jitsu is just focusing on safely getting to the clinch. You know, obviously we train that, as you know, every day almost. Right? It's just establishing the clinch, right? And then, but you know, obviously it doesn't end there, right? It's how to take the people to the ground, get them to the ground, and then obviously control. You can always use striking. The only difference I would say with striking is there's distance management and striking is a little bit different, and it's a little bit more technical, I would say, in the way that, you know, you have to know a certain amount of footwork and upper body movement, and I would say it involves a little bit more maybe speed and agility than a jiu-jitsu approach would take. Because I would say it doesn't take as much athleticism or even skills to get close to somebody and then end up on the ground and then from there win the fight from there.
And it works in close spaces too.
Yes.
Like if you're in an elevator, right, and you're like a big guy, and then you got someone that's smaller who, I don't know why they would pick a fight with you, but let's just say hypothetically you have, you know, longer limbs than the other person, then trying to kick and punch could work against you in that type of space.
Yeah, and you can almost use walls, like the closed space, kind of like as the ground.
Right.
Because usually we pin people on the ground, but you know, let's say if me and Johnny are fighting in, you know, an elevator, I'd say.
Right. And you might have actually, as a matter of fact.
You might wrestle a little bit.
If I pin Johnny against the wall, there's not much you can do. Right. So I can almost use the wall as the ground.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right? And if I'm more skilled, I can really take advantage of it and maybe bring him to the ground where I have even more control.
Understood. Go ahead.
And to touch on that, it's like the level of exhaustion. Like, for instance, if we get into a confrontation, let's say in the street, with your size, as good as a striker I am, I'm not gonna do much to you. You know.
Right.
So my main objective is gonna it's gonna close the distance, take you to the ground, let you exhaust yourself, trying to punch, trying to strike while I control. To then I could move on to a better position or submission, or just a position of control and hold and wait. Right?
Gotcha.
If I'm just a striker and once I feel any type of, animosity between me and you, the only thing I know is striking.
Right.
I might move around you, beat you up, but
right. Gotcha.
who really won?
The cool thing about Jiu-Jitsu is, like, if you look at kind of like the history of Jiu-Jitsu, think about UFC 1, right? What was the point of UFC 1? To see which martial art was the best, right?
Right.
Back then. So always wanted to show that it was Jiu-Jitsu. And so pretty much all he did was wait for guys to come in, and then pretty much the same thing that we do in combat, right? Establish the distance,
right?
Establish a clinch.
He took cats out. He took everybody out. I mean, he murdered cats in there, like strikers, like people that that have belts on, that wear belts or whatever. So I felt like it was I looked at some of the background actually, because I don't know if you remember, Bill Wallace was yes. there, and he was one of the commentators. And Bill Wallace, who's what was his name? Superfoot. Am
I too young to know who Bill Wallace is?
we all are young enough to not know, but I just did my research just because I remember him being on a poster I had in my room. Like my dad just gave it to me, like, hey, here you go. It's just like, to inspire you or something. And I never thought about who that cat was up there. I was just like, that's a great kick. And then many years later, somehow I was like, what's that guy's name? And it was in really small print, so I looked him up and I was like, wow, this guy's like phenomenal. He could only use his left leg to kick, but his left leg was clocked at like 60 miles an hour for a kick.
Right.
So like you're really hurting cats. You're breaking bones.
That's what Christian was telling us.
Yeah.
Like a couple weeks ago, like some time ago. He used to say he did say like almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah, Bill Wallace is great, man. Love that guy. But there was a video with him. I'll shoot it to you guys later today. But he was talking with this other guy that does karate in Sweden, and he was breaking down UFC 1. And he was going through. It was like pretty much it was like a showcase for jiu-jitsu. Like it was this brand new thing on the map. Like nobody was really paying it as much mind as they were karate or kung fu. Like this is coming right after like Bruce Lee's time and all those other movies that got modernized or whatever. So jiu-jitsu is like relatively new to the game. And then, like you said, everybody, if anyone's seen UFC 1, pretty much just walked through everybody. He had a tough time with a couple people, but like reasonably so. Like somebody that outweighed him 100 pounds.
Yeah,
but he still put him out.
The interesting thing is they were so confident that it was going to work that they put their
smallest guy. I thought about that. The smallest one of the Gracies, and the Gracies, for people who are listening and don't know, Gracies are like probably one of the most famous martial arts families out there. So, period. There's a whole long lineage of them going all the way back to Carlos Gracie, who was taught by I think Mitsuyo Maeda, who was a student of Jigoro Kano, who was the founder of judo. But anyway, yeah, it was crazy to watch, and he kept doing that. I think he ended up doing that for a couple of UFCs, right?
Yeah, I think he won with UFC 1 and 3. I can't quite remember, but yeah,
gotcha.
He did.
Yeah, it was crazy because if they threw Hickson, I like Hickson a lot. I like his attitude, his demeanor. The sort of I've seen what he can do. I watched the documentary Choke like a couple of times. Had my boys watch it with me too.
Yeah, Hickson really embodies like the spirit of martial arts.
He's like phenomenal. Like that's like spirit animal. Like on the other side of the fence for me. I'm like, if I could be a grappler or just be even more traditional than I would, I'd be kind of like that guy. But he still practices to this day. I think I see him on Instagram all the time. He's got a mat in the crib. Like people like that are like. And like my teacher, like once in a lifetime kind of athletes. Like you just don't see that level of persistence with an activity for that long. Because people get sidetracked with injuries, having kids, having wife, whatever, et cetera, and they put it down and they walk further and further away, and then before you know it, it's a conversational piece. Yeah. Oh, I used to do this. Yeah. I can't tell you how many cats come. I used to do. You do taekwondo? I used to do that 30 years ago. I'm like, and why did you stop? And then it's like and same with BJJ and anything else that's systemized like what we do. But I think, and I guess I'll give my opinion now. I think it's really more on to answer this question of the age-old question of what's better. I don't think it's a matter of the system. I think it's a matter of the practitioner. I think it's more about who's doing it rather than what's being done. Because I'm really confident in what I do. I may not put it out there like that, but I'm super confident I can keep cats away long enough to like connect with something. And I know enough. I feel like when I learned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at least for the first year, it totally widened my perspective. So many people telling me not to do it. I have more people telling me not to do it than to continue doing it. Yeah, they're like, They're like, keep going with TKD. You don't worry about that. You don't need that. I'm like, yeah, but 5th degree now, I'm like, the learning curve slows way down. So now I don't want to be a 6th degree black belt and not having learned something new. I should be getting to each level learning something else. I should be bringing something new to the game. Because, Taekwondo is, absolutely 1,000% my foundation. Everything is built off my Taekwondo. Like, my ability to learn what you guys taught me was based off TKD. Like, using my shoulders like feet. Like, when I was trying to shimmy, I got that. Because I was like, oh, that's how you would move your feet to do X, Y, Z. So it was like a template, if you will. I didn't obviously master anything you guys can do. But I still do the technical get-ups and stuff like that. Like, I keep up with it on my own in secret. But, I think it's, when it comes down to two practitioners, say it's Bart and me. If Bart is best at what he does, his job is to keep me in that department as much as possible, period. If he's better on the floor, he should be getting me in situations where I'm on the floor. And if I'm a striker, it's going to be on if I can keep him at that distance or if I could time you. Because I think a lot of striking comes down to who's got the superior knowledge and who's got the superior timing. Because without those two, I've seen older cats take out younger cats because they have this. Like having the superior use of angles, let them exhaust themselves. Kind of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's philosophy, letting them really wear out. And that's an interesting philosophy too, because that's when you watch two people strike all the time, they get more and more tired.
And they exhaust themselves.
So it's a matter of who gets tired first, as opposed to because you're trying to dwindle down, right, like the other person. But while you're doing that, you're also exhausting yourself a little bit too, even if it's not physically, it's mentally. So I think that's my opinion.
I think on the sports side of it, you can sometimes see that in MMA fights with guys who come from grappling backgrounds and guys who come from striking backgrounds.
Right.
So typically what people from grappling backgrounds like a jiu-jitsu, mostly jiu-jitsu guys have that problem of knowing what to do on the ground, but they kind of fail on closing the distance and getting them to the ground part. Right. Right. Because in order to use your jiu-jitsu, you need to actually get a hold of somebody.
Close the gap.
Yeah. Right. And once you do that, then you have tools to, bring them to the ground and win the fight. Right. And on the other hand, for strikers is the exact opposite. Right. What happens when they get close to you and then they need, they're trying to take you down, and if you find yourself on the bottom of the fight, you know how to get up. So for me, it's I'm not an ambassador for one, because I've always done both.
Right.
So
you got a unique take. That's why I had you here.
Yeah. So I've always, I never really thought about, okay, which one should I do more? I'm always gonna do both, because, if somebody wants to take me down, I need to know how to get up. Right. Or submit them from the bottom. Right. Or if somebody wants to strike and I'm not good enough, I gotta be able to take it down to the ground.
Question now. Is the instinct, if you're now let's say I land on top of you or somebody else lands on top of you, is the instinct for you now with your level of training respectively to stand up and take care of the fight from there? Or are you now trained enough to where you're like, I can stay right here for the next 30 minutes and take care of business?
I would say it depends on the context. So if it was like a self-defense situation, I know I could be on the ground and I'll be safe, because I have enough experience and know what I'm supposed to do. Right. It becomes different when you're in a fight and there's scoring. Right. Because when there's scoring and even if you're safe, even if you know what you're doing, you're losing the fight because the other guy is on top. Right. So and I've been kind of showing Johnny, even in jiu-jitsu, right? Because we were talking about jiu-jitsu competitions a little bit before. Right. And I was, Johnny knows how to sweep people, or even before he knew how to sweep people, he knew the submissions. But sometimes he would get stuck, not being able to sweep somebody or not being able to get the submissions. And, maybe I felt like he could lose the match by just kind of being on the bottom and maybe not attacking enough, maybe just kind of on score. Understood. Maybe he wouldn't get submitted, but he would lose, because he was on the bottom and kind of looked bad. So I was like, hey, Johnny, I showed him certain types of get-up techniques that he could do, which kind of ties more in wrestling. Gotcha. So we actually trained a lot of wrestling, over the summer and then ever since, summer. So that gives you a lot of tools to be able to get up and, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, you can attack from the bottom. Right. But it's always going to be better if you're on top, right? Even if you're great from the bottom, it's always going to be, you're always going to have easier time from the top, right?
Right.
And obviously you need the bottom game. You need the guard. You need to know how to defend yourself if somebody's on top of you mounted. That's the fundamentals. That's always going to be number one thing in jiu-jitsu, right? Because it's much more important for anybody to know what's going to happen if you're in the worst case scenario position than, okay, I'm in a good position. What should I do now?
Right.
One is like a must-have. One is like, okay, which option should I choose?
I love that. I love that.
That's a fact.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love
So,
that. Yeah. I'm gonna get you too. I'm gonna have you speak on that
Bart
too.
hit on that. That's key right there.
yeah. One is like an emergency escape. The other one's like a menu. I'll take this one.
At a certain level of training, though, like you have like options. You realize that like really you have to be comfortable in chaos. Period.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
You have to be comfortable. And warfare is like I tell my kids all the time. Like, what do you think the streets are paved over? Blood. Like, you know what I mean? We've had so many wars on this planet, on this green earth. So if anything, it's been red for a while. But I was like, I always say, like, if there's a fight going on to the left and a basketball game to the right, which way are you going to go? Most people say, I want to go see the fight. It's just ingrained in there somewhere.
Well, think about it this way. What happens if a fight breaks out in the middle of the basketball court? People are like, oh, all the headlines are going to be about that.
Yes, absolutely. 1,000%. No, it's 1,000%. Right? I remember used to watching Metal World Peace, Ron Artest go up into the stands.
He was aggressive.
Yo, he
man.
was more than aggressive. Yeah, more than aggressive. But but you see those cats, even hockey, like, same thing. Hockey's known for what?
It's like part of the sport.
It's part of the sport. It's like part of the culture.
Yes.
So it's like fighting is like, and that's sort of why this podcast exists in a sense, is that we're all fighting in some way, shape, or form, either in a direction for something, against something, or physically doing it as a form of discipline. But fighting is like what got us here. Like our genes had to fight to be here, if you think about it, right? So
and that's a big thing too. It's for people to realize that jiu-jitsu isn't just for athletes,
right.
And other martial arts aren't either,
right?
And the kind of like our job is to make it more accessible to people. And
yes.
That's why we, advocate for self-defense so much in jiu-jitsu, because it was originally founded as a self-defense art. The competition aspect arose afterwards, right? Because once people knew, how to defend themselves, they want to test themselves against each other, right? And then, that's how the competition, all these tournaments and all the competitions kind of came up, is, decide who's the best, in this art. But it was initially all about self-defense.
Right.
So, and everybody not everybody has to know how to fight. Not everybody has to compete, but everybody should know how to defend themselves.
I 1,000% agree with that. 1,000%.
Same. I feel the same way.
1,000%.
I tell my friends now who have kids,
right?
Like, what are you gonna do if you with your daughter or your son and you walking down a parking lot and somebody approaches you, and something happens? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna protect your family?
You made the perfect segue into my next question. So now I'm gonna go into this, and these are all, again, just all things that I dreamt about asking you guys, but I couldn't just go in there and be like, hey, I'm gonna take up the whole class of questions. But now thinking about striking and grappling, right? If in that hypothetical that you just gave, where let's put me, I have my daughter here and there's 3 cats here. Is jiu-jitsu better to take care of all 3 people right then and there while I have her in my hands? Like, I'm just being real. Like, if I have her, and I've been in real fights plenty of times, so it's like I grew up fighting. That's pretty much all we did. Sometimes I came home without my clothes, my backpack. Cats who take stuff off you. That's the era I was coming out of. So I'm thankful that kids these days necessarily aren't doing that, but I have to prepare them for worst case. I'm always worst case scenario. But in that instance where I have my daughter and it's just me, like I personally don't see myself using jiu-jitsu as much as my striking background, and not necessarily because I know more one than the other. I feel like I've never seen jiu-jitsu personally take care of 2 people at the same time. But is it possible? Is it possible?
I think with enough of a skill gap, I mean. You could probably find something on YouTube if you try hard enough.
Okay,
I'm sure there are some clips, but
YouTube that. All right, cool.
If there's enough of a skill gap, you could probably. I'm sure there are people who could probably do that, but if you're just an average jiu-jitsu practitioner, you probably can't expect to handle
3
two
guys.
guys.
Not
Two,
happening.
nah.
Not happening. Even okay, so even 2 guys, right? Because you take the extra guy away, and you got 2 people here. Like I feel like I could put little shorty down 2-second style, boom right here, and then like I bang with these cats. I feel like it's more striking, but that's just my training.
But
I guess.
that's the beauty about jiu-jitsu. You don't. How do you close the distance, right?
Right.
You probably gonna have to learn a couple jabs, you know. So
Right.
You might be able to knock one guy out and then
Right.
choke the other one.
Right. Now I think they're both essential. Don't get me wrong. I think learning jujitsu actually taught me more about TKD and the sort of the blind spots that we have in some cases. I mean, because we look at tournaments, a person that's really a really great competitor doesn't mean that they're a great fighter.
Yep.
I make that distinction with everybody I teach. Just because that person got first place in this particular fight at this time on this day doesn't mean that now when they step outside they could fight. They could really uphold what they're doing in a self-defense scenario because there's a translation there. And I've always made that distinction for many years. Like once I was able to make the distinction, like you're gonna when you're fighting for self-defense and you're fighting for a tournament, you have 2 different guidelines. It's totally it's like 2 different mindsets in a sense. So go ahead.
Just to kind of touch on that,
Yeah.
like Christian, as we all shout out Christian.
Shout out Christian, man.
Christian emphasizes
Montes,
that,
yes.
right? Like he tells us all the time. There's probably black belts out there who won't be able to be in the street and defend themselves, and because they've only
It's real talk.
their jujitsu's only based on sport.
Yes, real talk.
That,
Real talk.
You know, you kind of just shy away from the fundamentals of what's supposed to keep you safe and
Right.
protect you and potentially protect family, friends, whoever you're with. So
Right.
that's
That's what hooked me about being there, and still, like I said, I'm just trying to time it right to come back and continue with you guys. But that was like the main thing. It was like I told my boy, I was like, yo, it was self-defense from minute 1 of the class. Like when you were on top of me, how much you weigh, Johnny?
At that time,
Yeah.
I was probably like 145. At that time, I was probably like 140.
I would
Pre-quarantine.
Yeah, pre-quarantine. He had a muscle. And then now, but because I was overweight at the time, I was just out of shape for me. So I was probably like 240, 245. I run 220 like where I am now. So for me to not, and I'm strong, like I could lift a room. For me to not be able to push you off me showed me a lot about my blind spots. Like I was like, I can't push this. I outweigh him by 100 pounds. I felt the difference. I'm like, but I can't get him to unlock his arms. I'd have to bench the both of us basically. When I did the math, I was like, I have to be able to bench both of us just to sit up. And then this cat's gonna be like, all right, I got another one for you. You know what I mean? Coming up, yeah. But you were so humble about how you did the intro class, and I love that about it. It was like, yo, that's the intro, and it was like a full, 5 minutes? I was on the floor, something like that.
Probably like 2-3 minutes.
I've never even been on the ground for 5 minutes unless I slept. So it's like I was uncomfortable, yo. I had to be honest. I was super uncomfortable, but I love doing things that are uncomfortable. Those are the things I do the most. If it's uncomfortable to me, I do it. So that was a very interesting aspect because jiu-jitsu's philosophy is pretty much all groundwork, like we said before. So with you being able to keep me on the floor, I feel like you pretty much just eradicated all like being a 5th-degree black belt didn't matter in that circumstance. And I didn't come in there with that. I purposely told you guys, yeah, I'm a 5th-degree black belt in this, so you would teach me like a white belt, every level. Don't skip over anything. Like,
that's the beauty about. We were talking about it too. I was gonna ask you like what made you want to do BJJ,
man.
being that
You want to hear that story?
Because when you came in,
Okay.
this guy's huge.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
to hear your background, but
Yeah.
then as humble as you were to allow me to be able to show you something
it was dope, man.
You know, I was like, oh snap.
It was a
this
dope
is-
experience, bro. Well, so I forget when I came to you guys, 2019, 2020. I think it was 2019 going to early 2020. Yeah, I get the years. It's all blah. But I think what basically happened was I had my birthday, and around the time my birthday's in October. I like to establish New Year's resolutions 6 months in. I don't like to do New Year's resolutions in November or December because it's just mathematically less likely to work out and pan out, right? Like people that say I'm going to make a change on January 1st, I'm like, I bet. And let me see where you are February 1st, and they're not keeping up with it no more. They lost.
Yeah, it's like the people that show up in the gym in January and then by February they're out.
Correct. They lost the gas because they didn't mentally, and I'm big on mental, which the mental commitment is much more important than it's just probably just as, but it maybe a little more important than the physical aspect. But anyway, I basically stayed in Jersey, and I went to different schools. I really just made a decision one day. Let me see what schools I could find. See if there's any. I tried to look for something close. You guys are located in Manhattan, so it was a drive before I even landed on you guys on Google. But I took a tour of a couple of schools. I took my oldest son with me, and I wanted to sort of show him how to humble yourself, how to be not to be complacent with where you are. Because I said I'm super proficient with what I do. I don't lose. In a self-defense scenario, I'm not losing. Like I know too much at this point, at this stage in the game. But when it comes to kids watching me, I feel like I have a real big responsibility to teach. I have a thirst for teaching, especially the young ones. And I want them to see. They always see people like in positions of power, but they don't ever see them get uncomfortable. I said, you should be able to see me getting very uncomfortable, because that means I'm not growing if I'm not getting uncomfortable. I'm big on that. So my son Jaden went with me. He saw me get choked out. He saw me fall asleep. I legit got tapped out. I got tapped out. This one guy, I forget his name. I'm gonna find him one day when I learn enough BJJ. I'm gonna find him, yo.
Hunt him
Because
down.
I'm gonna find this cat because I went to this school in Jersey. I won't name the school, not naming names, but he basically almost crushed my voice box just before Christmas. And we were sparring on the second day. I knew something was wrong.
Second day,
I knew
wow.
something was wrong right there. I was like, nope. Because if I brought you guys in to do TKD, I shouldn't be having you sparring any black or anybody. You shouldn't be sparring with anyone on your second day.
Yes.
And I know how the system works. It's just not safe. It's not that it's necessarily for business purposes. It's for your safety. You should not be sparring anybody because, I've seen so many people walk into the school and turn their back because they got hurt, injured, whatever, and they just get upset. So I didn't go back for that reason.
It's funny. We hear a lot of that stories. At Ronin.
I'm sure. But no, you guys look like you have a pretty high retention. Just the way you guys teach, I can't imagine you guys not having a high retention rate, period. But anyway, fast forward, I went through a few schools. I found Ronin. I obviously went, did I take my son with me the first time? I might have. I think I did. But I came in, I was like, I signed up for my little class online. I was at work, and I was really excited to go. I went right after work. My wife looked at me crazy. She was like, "You're going to do what? Start over from what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to start over from white belt." I said, "But I have to." I was like, I'm just too comfortable here. I'm not learning enough. There's only so much you can really learn on your own. At this point, it's really just I'm training myself, which is fine. And then I take a test in a couple of years or whatever, if everything works out. But that's a lot of the time in between ranks is, from 5th degree to 6th degree is 6 years minimum to wait.
For Taekwondo?
Just from 5th degree to 6th degree, that's 6 years wait minimum. And we're gonna get into the belt aspect after this. I'm so excited to have you guys here. But basically, it's a long wait. So you got to find a way to keep yourself busy. I get bored doing the stuff that we do, so I make it more fun. I've been doing that with my teaching, mixing in fitness and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, when I came into Ronin, like I said, the atmosphere was totally different. There was no ego. There was no, oh, yeah, we're going to take you out. The guys in the locker room, and I kind of judge a school by the people in the locker room. So when I went to the locker room, I was like, all right, cats are attended. The business structure was nice. People come up to you. You came up to me and spoke to me. Hey, shook my hand. I'm like, all right, this is cool, bet. And I saw Bart doing this thing, and I was like, all right, so I'm going to see how these cats roll. And it was just, like I said, I was hooked on it. As soon as I took that first class, I didn't get hurt. I learned just enough to get me to the next time. So I was like, I want to come back. And, it was affordable. The time was hard because it's an hour commute. So I had to really plan my time, and especially with my daughter being as young as she was, I was like, that's a lot of time to subtract from her. But yeah, it was just, that was kind of the goal. How can I stay safe? I don't need a black eye per se. I'm fine with getting one, but I didn't like getting my voice box my larynx practically crushed. I couldn't even talk on Christmas. I was like, people were like, what happened? I was like, yeah, you get sick sometimes, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that kept me, the professionalism and it was a confidence that exudes from you guys that didn't ever border the line of cockiness. It was just like, yo, you want to learn this? Yo, cool, come over here, boom. All right, let me help you. Hey, Chris, do this. And a lot of that comes from just being receptive to learning in general for me. I'm very receptive to someone's got a new perspective on something. I want to hear what it is. I'm very receptive to that.
That's dope.
But a lot of cats, they put on the black belt and they call them, I don't feel like I could call myself a martial artist. I don't know about everybody else. I cannot call myself a martial artist if I haven't, not necessarily because I haven't studied more than one martial art, but if I haven't opened up my mind to the possibilities of what another martial art has to offer. Like, there's so many, like, too often I hear, oh, well, BJJ does this, and Aikido does this, and that's not good. Taekwondo does. I'm like, there's a lot of things Taekwondo can't do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot we can do, sure, especially the way I've been taught, from who I've been taught from, who's like a student of the founder, so it's like as close as you can get to the source. But, like, there's other things that, you know, if I push someone on the floor, or if I get pushed on the floor, you can't really kick as effectively with your back on the ground as we can standing up. So that's where you guys come into play. But that was my experience,
That's
man.
dope.
And like going back
Yeah.
to the, you know, with your first day.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's less of a problem now, I guess, but that's one of the problems that jiu-jitsu gyms have. Some of the jiu-jitsu gyms have in the beginning is they just allow that, right? They allow the person to just start rolling the first day.
Yeah.
And I first came to Ronin in 2013.
Gotcha.
And it was always like you know, obviously we didn't have the combatives program yet, but Christian had the same mentality of you're not gonna roll, you know, until, you know, at least like 6 months.
Right.
So I didn't start rolling, you know, 6-7 months in.
Gotcha.
First 6, it was just drilling techniques, and you know, you know, for me, like I wanted to roll because I'm pretty competitive, but so it was kind of like a hard pill to swallow. But like now being a coach, like it totally makes sense.
You can
because
see it.
What's the point of me rolling my first weekend if I'm, you know, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm probably gonna either get hurt, and one thing people don't really consider is people think that, you know, obviously you can get hurt if you're the new white belt, but it all happens one thing that happens a lot also is the new white belt, because they don't know what they're doing, sometimes hurt the other belts.
Yep.
Right? Because, and not like they're not trying to hurt somebody, they're not being malicious, but it's just they don't know what they're doing. And say in jiu-jitsu is, you know, because we're so close, like I had this one funny incident when I was rolling. I was still a white belt,
Right.
and I was rolling with this girl who was also a white belt, I think from a different gym, and she was in my guard and she was trying to pass really hard, and then she moved in a really weird way where I took like a full front elbow right to the nose.
Oh man.
And I was like, oh, well, this is why white belts don't roll when they first start.
You started leaking from there, because people don't realize you get hit in the nose, you get touched in the nose. It doesn't take like a full-fledged jab to like make you start to.
Thankfully
bleed.
I didn't bleed, but I got the point.
Yeah,
you know?
I got you. I got you. Yeah, it's definitely enlightening when you I think. Because you humble yourself too in that regard. Like, all right, cool. Because you could just easily be like, pack up your stuff and go to another school where they can start rolling. So there's obviously something about the way Christian delivered that message to you, and then what he started to show you that made sense. And I guess in that scenario, you do, as you start to teach, that's so important. There are a lot of students that don't. A lot of people ask me, how can I get better? I said, start teaching.
Yeah.
You'll learn. You'll honestly teach yourself back. Like whatever you're missing, your game is missing, you'll understand why the system, why it works this way, why you shouldn't do this, why you should do this, and you can get into all the, like, you know, caveats and nuances here and there. But
it's kind of interesting because a lot of things that we know, like I'm sure you could probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
You kind of know it without even thinking about it.
Right.
But once you start teaching, you kind of start questioning yourself and asking, like,
Yes.
what exactly am I doing?
Big time, huge. I mean, it's. We're super parallel here. Now, the belt system in BJJ is quite different from the way like other formal styles are set up. And I know from one of my longtime friends who studied Wan Hua Do, which is like some very like ancient form of like what we do now. But he was talking to me about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and he was like, yeah, it takes like 15 years to become a black belt. And I was like, it takes that long? Like, what can you guys say, like, attest to in terms of that? Because I know the gap between like white belt, blue belt. Like, I know a lot of cats that haven't stuck with it, because they're like, one guy lives by my house. I used to teach his daughter, and I think he spent like 5 years as a white belt trying to get to the blue belt. But the effectiveness is ridiculous, off the charts. His effectiveness, just one belt, makes him like it's like night and day. Like you were this guy that just walked in off the street, goofy, and now blue belt. Like he could take care of business. Like what can you guys speak to in terms of how the belt system works and the effectiveness of, and particularly of the Gracie university methodology of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
So, just like, I would say it just kind of depends on the person, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, for instance, in my situation, to speak for myself, when I came in, I was nonstop.
Right.
Like, I didn't take it. I still don't take a break. Like, I
Right.
was like, go,
I
go,
believe
go,
it.
go.
I believe it.
And I not once thought about, damn, I can't wait till I get a blue belt. I want to get a blue belt.
Right.
Or I'm going to keep showing up.
Right.
And when I got my blue belt now, it was like, oh, snap, I'm a blue belt. But nothing changes, like,
Right.
just because you get the belt. But mentally, I changed.
Right. Right.
Because now I'm like, I'm a blue belt. I'm going to work harder.
Right.
Like, I'm going to definitely, like, and now I'm not thinking, damn, I want to get my purple belt.
Right.
I just want to keep going, riding out till till Christian feels like, all right, he's ready.
Right. That's cool because I know personally, like when you, the way the history says it, at least the way history is written, is like, you know, promotions in formal systems of martial arts, like you would do it. The students would do exactly what you did. Keep showing up, keep doing it. There was no test or promotion per se. You would just like exhibit all that in the class, and then they'd be like, "Stop! Here's your belt." I've seen like Eddie Bravo do that. John Donaher do that. Some crazy, and they dish out like some crazy, like the people that come out of their schools are like insane. Like I can't imagine the difference. I guess the difference between a white belt and a blue belt for you guys is almost like looking at the difference between a white belt and probably blue with 2 red, which is really close to red. It's almost like where you are, because you're a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, so you're like a step away. So blue with 2 red is about one whole belt away from black belt. So that's like a huge jump that covers yellow, and all the intermediate stages in between. So why? I'm just trying to figure out, like, I guess it's at the time that it's got to be time spent. Right, in rank.
Yeah, and
right?
with Gracie University, the way we're structured is we test, right?
Right.
So like now that I'm a blue belt, I'll test for my blue belt stripe 1.
Right.
So it's like a certain amount of techniques that I need to know to be able to get that stripe.
Got it.
So like I learned that I need structure to learn.
Right.
Like me personally.
Right.
Like I know now why I struggled in high school. Not that I was a bad student or I
Right.
got bad grades, but just learning certain things. Just the structure wasn't right for me.
Got you.
So now with this structure, it's like, okay, now I know, like, I got to do this to get this. I got to do this to get to this.
Right.
So I know. And even if I keep showing up every day, doesn't mean I'm going to get it overnight.
Right.
I mean, it could be.
Right.
But I know that I got to get this down packed, then I got to get this down packed. Because just because I could beat a purple or a brown belt doesn't mean I'm a purple or brown belt.
Right.
Right.
Right. But does it make you feel that way though? If you're like, it's this probably a tiny party that's
Honestly,
like, yo, if I'm submitting someone higher than me, and I think that was probably some of the tests I heard about. Like, I think Hickson was talking like, yo, if you're tapping out, if you're this rank and you're tapping out cats higher than you after a certain amount of time, it's like, all right, you now can be that rank or something like that.
Honestly, like
Johnny Garcia's perspective,
just a little bit,
just
a little bit. Sometimes I feel like that,
Okay.
but I don't let it go over. Like I don't exactly.
Yeah,
I don't let it
you.
like.
You're a humble cat.
I don't let it cloud my, the
your
way
direction.
that
Your direction,
exactly,
for sure.
exactly.
I would say BJJ promotions are very subjective. It's kind of it's almost all up to the coach to decide. Like obviously there's in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu schools, like when we start Gracie Combatives, when you guys start Gracie Combatives, like if you become a student, we first get to your first goal is to go to the Combatives belt, obviously, right?
Right.
So if somebody doesn't know the Jiu-Jitsu belt ranks, it's from the lowest to highest: white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, in adult at least.
Right.
So basically what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu has done is they added the Combatives belt, which is kind of between white belt and blue belt.
Intermediary step, right?
Yeah. So basically what Combatives belt is kind of like the graduation of your Gracie Combatives techniques. Right? Once you accumulated the knowledge, once you have the knowledge and you're able to demonstrate that you're able to show these techniques and you're able to put them together in the test, then you get your Combatives belt, and then from there you're working towards your blue belt, right? And then that's the kind of the switch you get, that's the switch you do from becoming from getting to self-defense to more like sport recreational jiu-jitsu.
Gotcha. I got a big question for you too. At what point do you think, and this is just general, you can take it from your POV too, but at what point do you think that we stop becoming students and really start to apply the artistry? Like when do we become artists in what we do? Because it's martial arts. Like it's all under that. We're all here under that branch of art, and I'm always curious about at what point do we become artists in what we're doing? Where that falls. I have my own idea, but I was curious to hear your opinion on that.
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
I would argue, like, even it might sound kind of funny or weird,
No,
but I
go
think
for
from
it.
day one, even
Go for
it
it.
might be sloppy, it might be bad, but as soon as you start doing jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu is an art.
Right.
When you're technically, you're doing art. It might be sloppy, it might be, not sophisticated to a sophisticated eye, but
Right.
you're still doing jiu-jitsu, and over the years, you obviously refine it, you make it better, but it's still the art, I would say.
Gotcha. Do you create? Like that's the point I'm trying to touch on. Is there a point, and I've seen it, where I think it was the omoplata I heard you say one day, where it's like this is a position where it has 3 different endings or something like that. And don't let me butcher it, but I've seen where you you can set up the armbar, and I personally, just because I'm so far along in TKD, I'm applying my structure to the format of what you guys do. So I'm like, okay, if he's doing this, then something else naturally has to be able to come off that same move.
Yeah, that's what I would kind of argue towards that, is because everybody has their own game, like in a way. Like
Right.
everybody has, we all know the techniques.
Preference,
But,
yeah.
but it's how we apply them.
Yeah.
When you're in a certain position, it's like a tree, right? You have several branches you can
Absolutely.
go with, right? So everybody has to choose their own path. Let's say if we're in a guard, I have different choices. I can look to set up a sweep. I can try to set up a submission, or I can look to get up.
Right.
And then, depending maybe what my opponent does or maybe what I like to do, I'll try to set up one of those things. And I think that's the kind of art of it, is what do you create with the openings that you have.
Got it. With that lens, lens, because it's almost like, because if outside of, let's say 4 martial arts, then it's almost like a bigger funnel. Like you can see more openings, like you were.
Yeah,
just
and
saying.
I kind of saw that. Like obviously I said I've done jiu-jitsu and I've done kickboxing, Muy Thai.
Right.
After a few years of doing that, I've actually tried to, me and Johnny have done, and some of the guys, we kind of put it together, kind of like MMA.
Nice.
And especially, I think I'll let Johnny speak, like, from his perspective. There's so much stuff you can do. Like, think about what you can do in MMA. You can punch, you can elbow, you can knee, you can take somebody down. You can try to
Kick.
submit them on the ground. You
Yeah.
can try to ground and pound.
Right.
You can pin somebody against the wall. You can punch them from close range, or you can kick them from far range. There's so many things you do. You can do. You can't do everything at once. So you have to choose your own sort of game.
Right.
So everybody can have, when they start, they're gonna create that path for themselves, and they're gonna carve it out.
Understood. Gotcha.
Like-
What's your take, man?
So like what Bart was saying, how we've been training, but so during the summer we started wrestling, and I fell in love with wrestling.
Right.
I didn't care for it before. In high school, I would see the wrestlers and think they just looked funny with the singlets on.
Right.
And like they'll put the mats down in the lunchroom. Like, what are they doing?
Right.
So, but now once we started, it's like just from learning just the wrestling has made my jiu-jitsu so much better. Like, just
Do you consider wrestling a martial art?
yes,
Why?
because it's a
What makes that what makes anything a martial art in your eyes?
damn. That's another good question. I think just because I could use it as well with my jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
Jiu-jitsu is a martial art.
Right.
Wrestling, I would say, is a martial art too.
Right.
If anything, wrestling is one of the oldest too, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Greeks were doing it a long time ago. People before them. Boxing. I was reading the Tao of Jeet Kune Do again by Bruce Lee. I've read that book many times. If you haven't read that book, and you're a martial artist, don't play yourself. Read that book. And it's a bunch. It's funny because Bruce Lee never wrote a formal book. He wrote notes.
You got to send that.
He wrote notes. Yeah, man, huge.
I think it's interesting that you brought up like your point of view with you being a master in Taekwondo and then coming into Jiu-Jitsu. A lot of Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling are kind of obviously closely related.
More complementary, yeah.
But a lot of people in Jiu-Jitsu, especially like in competitive Jiu-Jitsu, they don't really practice wrestling.
Got it.
Kind of like when Johnny started, he didn't really know too much about wrestling, and he didn't think he necessarily needed that for competition.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
But once he started doing it, he noticed how much it enhanced him. And when he started, it was funny. Like I was never a great wrestler, but I had some knowledge previously, right? And I could see in Johnny's face how frustrated he would get in his training sessions because even though he already had a pretty good base in Jiu-Jitsu, even though Jiu-Jitsu is pretty closely related to wrestling, it was still so new to him, and I could see he wanted to be good at it, but he didn't quite have the knowledge yet.
Yeah.
But the progress that he made from around the summertime till now is amazing.
Yeah. I watch you guys train on the gram all the time. I'm like, oh, they're getting it in.
I know Johnny's been, he's been going to a different gym, BMA, right?
Yeah, Bronx Martial Arts Academy.
Bronx Martial Arts. Shout out to them.
And he's been telling me about his time rolling with the guys, and he's been getting the compliments like, "Hey, you've been a wrestler."
Yeah, it's funny because so I've been
ties right in.
Yeah, so I've been going to the Bronx Martial Arts Academy. It's a Henzo Gracie affiliate.
Gotcha. Beautiful.
Run by a great professor named Doug, and so I've been going there twice a week. And when I'm we'll start standing because of learning wrestling. Thanks to Christian who told me, because when I got my blue belt, I asked Christian what can I do to be better?
Right.
And he was like, oh, your fundamentals are good. Of course, keep working them, but I think you should invest more in wrestling.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Gotcha.
And through Bart and Christian's guidance, I was able to just kind of fall in love with wrestling. I legit love wrestling.
Right. And we're not talking like WWE,
no,
SmackDown.
Not WWE,
we're not talking about freestyle wrestling.
Amateur wrestling.
Amateur wrestling. Gotcha.
And now the guys, they ask me after, yo, you a wrestler? And I'm like, nah, I've only been wrestling for several months. And
right.
Like, really? Wow. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
That's what's up, yo.
It makes me, it gives me that confirmation, okay, it works.
That you're doing something right.
It goes with what I want to do or what I need to do.
Right.
So we were talking about the different martial arts and how striking and grappling can kind of work with each other or against each other.
Yeah.
So wrestling for jiu-jitsu is very it can help. Let's say if you're a jiu-jitsu guy that's never done wrestling, it can benefit you so much because let's say if you're whether you're competing or you're in a self-defense type of situation, if you're so good at jiu-jitsu, you're great at controlling the ground, but you still need that avenue to get into the clinch and take them down.
Right.
And that's what wrestling gives you in a big way, is the ability to take somebody down. And once you master that portion, then you can use your jiu-jitsu instead of wasting your energy or getting tired or getting punched in the face
and frustrated because a lot of mistakes happen, right? And you notice as a striker, right, having fought a couple of times, when you frustrate somebody, they tend to make a lot of mistakes, and that's what you want to do. I want, as a striker, I want the person, I want them thinking more than I am, and I want them working more than I am. So their work, definitely. I want them burning mentally and physically a lot. I got that burning thing from Hannah Gracie. I was listening to him. I was like, yo, but it's true though. You want them to exhaust, right? In that way, I never put the semantics together like that, but that's kind of always what you're trying to do. But I find that to be real interesting. The problem I have with jiu-jitsu, the only problem I really have with jiu-jitsu that I can't see yet is being on the striking end and spending so many years here is the dangerous spot from the clinch that you guys starting out further away from the opponent, and then the clinch, getting to connect to the opponent. That space right there, right in between, that's where I find the issue. Because if you got someone that's let's say they're a professional boxer, you know what I mean? That could be a problem because then you can't, because your job is to be able to do this. Once you do this, you could take care of business. But if I can't do that, then I can't. At least that's what it seems like. You correct me if I'm wrong. But that's where I feel like that's really one of the issues where, You know, if you got someone that's better at their striking game and they're keeping, then you can't really necessarily connect, at least from what I know so far. So you enlighten me on?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you think about Gracie Combatives, is like an introduction to basically self-defense.
Right.
Right. So the way we train is, that's kind of pretty elementary footwork.
Right.
Of just keeping your feet about 45-degree angles and making sure you're not stepping over your feet.
Right.
Right. Now, once you get past combatives, we actually do, and Johnny can even jump in on that too.
Yeah.
We start, we put the little gloves on, right, and then we kind of work a little bit more on
like a fight simulation.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. And we worked on that aspect of closing the distance too, right?
Got it.
Once we get to that clinch, we also have different. You don't only have to rely on the techniques you learn at combatives. You'll have more, available options, and you'll explore what happens when your initial attempts get resisted too, right?
Understood.
So, combative is only like an entry to that. It's not, it's not end of be all when it comes to just getting from out of range to all the way in.
Do you think more strikers could benefit, even with people that like do it when I do, have a belt or whatever? Which the belt is great, but do you think more strikers can benefit from opening their minds up to the jiu-jitsu background and exploring that?
I think
even
so.
if they don't take it to black belt, just to have tuck away, a year in my pocket has made a difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
At least purple belt, right? Purple, blue, purple.
Yeah.
For striking,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I think understanding concepts, because some of the concepts they translate from one art to the other.
Yes.
So even though they're all different, they all usually share the same similarities,
Right.
right? Especially when it comes to distance.
Right. Frame escape is my go-to. I even though we were soloing for a year, that's still something I'll do, because I think about some of the blocks that we do in Taekwondo and using my hands. You could use it. I can use it against someone standing up and create space like that too.
Oh,
Move my head away.
Headlock escape.
Yeah.
Yep.
Headlock
Yep.
escape.
Move my head away if we're standing up and I'm
One
against the
headlock
wall.
escape,
I can
yeah.
do this, and I just know how to integrate. And that's again bouncing back off what I said earlier. You got those cats. I mean, I've seen a lot of black belts. I'm not calling nobody out. I've seen a lot of black belts in my time. Whatever higher than me, I've seen them lose like big time. We're in a bar and and it goes down. I'm like, yo, yo, I'm not hopping in that. You know what I'm saying? It's 1-on-1. I'm gonna let you shoot the fade with the cap. But it's you had all this training. You can't. It's almost nullified. You know what I mean?
You gotta practice being in those situations, right? Because the adrenaline.
But
rush.
here's the thing though, and I know cats who are listening to me now that do what I do also, know me 1-on-1. They know it's these cats that have won tournaments though, have been notorious first place winners in tournaments. But you take them off the mat and you put them in a bar and this guy throws a hook, and you're like, what do I do? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you do? To me, it's an immediate switch. I don't know how that kind of happened, but it's not. Martial arts are not necessarily always taught the same way or taught well. That's what I've noticed in my time. You do have poor instructors out there. You guys happen to have a great instructor, and Christian, we do, I'll say. But not everybody learns. Especially with my experience going through, I don't know how many schools before I got to you guys. There's a lot of crap out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in all aspects of it. But I think it's more important. Like I said, one of the functions of this podcast is to bring people on and get them and kind of educate people on what else is out there and what can get them comfortable, particularly the mindset, because people are listening right now. So it's what can they take from our conversation, your experience being as far as you are, and Johnny's, and how to use that in an everyday life. That's kind of where I'm going next. How do you use BJJ? It's probably the question I get asked the most is how do you apply BJJ to life?
So I probably years ago, I was someone who I took the train a lot. So being the environment I grew up in, people would look at me and I immediately wanted to fight.
Ready, the eye, yep.
And since I and I'm talking about I would take the train with knives that I would make, thinking that I would need it to defend myself.
Right.
But ever since I started jiu-jitsu, I have not gotten into anything like that, because I understand okay, not that what I could do to you, but just the the understanding of like just to avoid it
The
because
confidence.
I know that what's in my arsenal.
So you're not actively seeking any of this to be clear.
No.
You're not seeking confrontation
No,
as a
no,
mark.
no.
People sometimes people misconstrue that confidence that we carry around as like as confrontational. I like confrontation in a competitive format. Like if you put me up against somebody and want to see who's the best, I'm down. But when it comes to like when we finally put the headphones down and go step outside, I'm not looking for someone to beat up. It's not like that for me at least. So I think that's
and it in
important.
jujitsu helps me like like if I go like recently like the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I didn't train as much as I usually train,
right.
and I felt so we could curse.
Of course you can.
I felt so shitty.
Yeah.
Like, just like real shitty. And like,
Yeah.
it started to affect everything else in my life.
Yeah.
Like just my reactions, the way I was my patience level.
Right.
And I'm like, damn, why do I feel like this?
Yep.
And every day I would wake up thinking like, damn, I know what I should be doing. So like now I got back to it and it's like, oh, I feel
You got those texts from Bart. It was like, yo, where you at?
feel
Where
so
you at?
I would actually talk to Bart all the time. Like,
Yeah.
like whoever knows me knows I'm like an open book. So I would express myself just how I feel. So I would tell Bart like, damn, bro, today I felt shitty because I didn't do this.
Right.
Or damn, bro, I felt shitty because I wasn't gonna go train.
Yeah.
I went to train and I feel amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it just helps me
that's-
go through the day.
And that's kind of goes back to the community, right?
Yes, it does. Big time.
Because
Big time.
we have that, right? We
Yeah.
we have each other. We have different students that we can talk to, and like it's funny. Like some of the students, like people kind of make these group chats, right?
Yeah.
And they text each other, and sometimes we hear the stories, and it's it's so cool to hear that our students all kind of bond each other, and even if you have a bad day, if you're at like if you go to a gym or whatever, pick something else where you do it by yourself. You only have yourself, and you can only fall back on other people.
Right.
But
Yep.
and a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms and especially ours, we have that community where if you had a bad day or if you rolled and you get submitted
Right.
50 times and you're just like, man, I don't want to come back.
Right.
You can always talk to other students and they'll probably be able to relate. Like, man, I got tapped out like 20 times too.
Right.
But this guy, yeah, I know by him.
Right.
He's destroying everybody.
So it's a mutual. It's that guy over there. It's not us.
yeah, you know what? Coach is gonna go with him next round. Let's all watch.
Right. And I guess you guys have seen like other black belts. Have you ever had Hannah Gracie in front of you? Any of the Gracies in front of you working?
Yes.
Seeing them operate?
Yeah.
Or
So
I haven't.
Yeah.
Hannah Gracie actually came to our gym.
I saw something on the like a slide or something like that on the website. Yeah.
So we had a seminar.
That's dope.
He came in to teach a seminar. The funny thing is, I was downstairs in the front desk, and there was a lot of people coming in. It was actually like really packed. I think we almost had like 50 people.
Right. That's a lot in that space too. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people.
And they came in from sometimes from different places, maybe even like Jersey or like even different states, or just from New York, but different gyms.
Yeah.
It was a big deal, and I was downstairs just kind of checking people in,
Right.
Before they went upstairs and changed, and as I was checking people in, this guy comes in the hood and he kind of sneaks by. I'm like, hey, can you? Are you taking a seminar? He takes his hood and it's Hannah Gracie.
Wow.
I'm like, oh shit.
No words needed.
Nope.
He was like, hey.
I totally missed him. I didn't even know it was him.
That's cool, man.
But yeah, he came in and he taught an amazing seminar and it kind of like put our gym kind of on the. I don't want to say put it on the map, but it kind of showed everybody like what we're teaching.
Highlighted your space.
Yeah, pretty much.
And your skill set. Yeah, that's crazy. That's definitely. I think you have to test. If you're gonna test for black belt, you have to go out there to Cali to go do that, right?
I think Christian's probably.
At GU,
Yeah,
yeah.
Christian said even though he's a black belt, he's gonna want to get a black belt under them. So
For sure. No, that'd be a privilege to it's like something to like check off, like on your end for sure.
yeah, because a lot of. You could probably ask him that more, but
Yeah.
He's been contacted
I'm
by a
gonna
lot of
have him
people.
on too. I'm gonna get him on here. We gonna all politic in here. I promise you, he'll be on here too. I'm gonna have him purposely separate because I want to get his. I was looking at something from him a couple of weeks ago on his IG where he fought MMA like a while. Like he's been in this for a minute. Like Christian is he's done it.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
done
as old school as he can get.
He's done it. So like big shot. I got ton of respect for that dude. But it'd be incredible to have him on here and get his perspective for sure. I have one, like, I guess sort of final question for you guys before we close out.
I kind of wanted to touch.
Oh, go ahead,
on,
touch whatever
like,
you want to touch.
We were talking about in
Yeah,
regards to what BJJ does for me, right?
Go ahead.
And
Especially now in these times.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially now.
So, like, the neighbor, I live in the Bronx.
Right.
And
BX.
shout out to BX.
Hey, yo.
And, you know, like, the environment we grow up in that area
Rough.
and other areas around the world.
Aggressive.
It's aggressive.
I know.
And if you don't know the people in your neighborhood, then it could be intimidating.
Right.
Very intimidating.
Walking through there especially, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So, like, what Jiu-Jitsu has done for me is being able to walk through the crowd with my head up and not down.
Gotcha.
Not
chest out.
Not chest out.
Yeah, I got you.
Sometimes. Not all the time. But just be able to, you know, walk and
Yeah.
be able to give you a hand and look
Right.
at you in the eyes and speak to you, you
Right.
know, and just be myself
Right.
all the time.
What was the difference between you before, like, what was the you before you kind of, and what, I guess what point did you change into, like, this person where you were like, all right, back straight? Because it happens with people that stick with martial arts in general, like, over time. Like, it's, like, almost designed that way. Like, to just kind of improve you, period. Like, you know, your posture, your habits, making the bed. I mean, I know I'm like that. Like, I should be cleaning the floors. I should mop this. I treat my house like a dojo. I don't even have a dojo. I don't have we don't wear shoes in my house. Like, everything, nope. Keep all the shoes out there. People look at me a little funny. I'm like, well, you can stay out there or you can come in here. You know what I mean? Like, but respect the space, because you guys respect your space. That's like one of the first things you're taught. You come on the mat, like, you know, some people bow, some people don't. But when you see people bow in the space, it's like, again, a sign of respect for your space. So I guess I feel like martial arts is just sort of designed to improve you, like, perpetually, not just like for a couple of years or for a couple of months or for a couple of belts. Like, it's really for, like, lifetime improvement and to seek improvement. Like, even when you're done, you know, feeling like you're done learning what you need to learn, like, all right, go hop into something else. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's important.
And I went through a tough time, like 2019.
Yeah.
It was rough for me.
Yeah.
And Jiu-Jitsu is what kept me going, like,
Gotcha.
legit. Like, that's what kept me, like, and I was, you know, depressed. I was going through a lot, man. And it really, like, kept me going. Like, I was just looking forward to going into the academy training and afterwards. Because while you in there, you're not thinking about nothing else.
Right.
You're not thinking about the bill you got to pay. You're not thinking
Right.
about the relationship you got to patch up.
Right.
It's just like, I'm here now, and it's like, this is what it is.
Right.
And then afterwards, because of what I was enjoying in the academy, I'm able to just reflect on that.
Right.
And that's what kept me going. And I'm thinking now, like, if it's only been 2 years, imagine 5 years. Imagine 10 years.
Yep.
Like,
The big changes for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people say that too, you know, especially, you know, like, if they're, like, doctors, lawyers, whatever, they say that's, like, their favorite part of the day is coming and training with us. So it gives them that chance to kind of do something physically that's difficult and kind of blow the steam off, all the energy, like, all the energy. Let's say if they had a bad day, you know, maybe they're a little bit angry, or, you know, they just had a bad day, they can go to the class, and if it's a tough class, they'll have the workout part of it, and they also learn new skills, and they'll kind of, that's what makes their day.
That's so cool,
We
man.
heard that a lot.
Yeah, it's important, as I think, especially since all three of us here teach. It's been more important to me because I spent I don't know how much time teaching now, but it's been a while. Some cats I'm teaching, a lot of the cats I'm teaching now, like, I taught when they were 5, 6.
wow.
5, 6. It made me feel old. I'm only 32, so it's like young. So it's like for them to say, like, yo, I've been teaching you since how young, and they're like coming to me now. They're like about to finish. One of my dudes is about to finish college now. Like, and he says to me, like, and I built out, like, a part of my website where it's all testimonials. I asked people, like, I asked Christian for one. I was like, yo, be 100% honest. That's number 1, 2, and 3. Give me something that's honest, and then all I'm doing is copy and pasting. And it took me a while to actually read them because I'm not like that. So I just wanted to have something where people if they were trying to find me, they would know I'm quality, or at least, you know, to some degree. But some of these things are blowing you away, what people tell you about yourself and the amount of time you spend teaching. Like, imagine 10 years from now. Like, with both of you teaching, like what people will say about you, how many lives you've already impacted, how many lives you are going to affect in a positive way just through doing what you love to do. That's why I love martial arts so much. It's not like we work hard at doing this. Like, we work hard at making sure, I think, we disseminate it the right way. And I saw that from you guys, like from day one, second one, which is like, teachers can understand teachers. Like, I'm like, that's a real teacher. That's a real teacher. I'm in. But it's like you end up affecting a lot of people without realizing it. Like, yo, I just came to the school today to teach you. I didn't mean for you to, for that to, patch up your relationship at home, or for you to, reach out to your kid that you haven't seen in 3 years and become a better person. Like, and I get those, and it's humbling to get, because I didn't think that way many years ago. I just did the job. Like, I'm here to do the job. I'm getting,
That's how I felt when you left the comment after the 10-minute intro.
Yes, yeah.
I was like,
yeah,
I did that?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. Yeah, real. You got some real powers, bro.
Like,
for real. For real.
It touched me. I showed my girlfriend, like, yo, babe, look.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah, man. And it's also, like, being real. Like, I saw someone like me there, and I didn't realize that made a difference. Like, I'm not colored like that. So I'm like, my father's Puerto Rican. He's like Americanized white. Like, he's as white as day. So when I tell people that's my pops, like, they're like, how you get? I'm like, don't worry about it. That's pops. Period. Like, you know what I mean? But when you step into the mat, everybody gets tired. Everybody sweats. Everybody stinks. Everybody gets hurt. So it's like color just gets knocked all the way down. It's all about performance and that camaraderie you're talking about with the community.
Yeah, there's something about martial arts that just brings people together.
It's the bonding thing. It's really a unique bonding process. I don't think I don't think I would get this experience out of doing anything else, like, or football, or like boxing even. It's like, and no disrespect to any boxer, because I love boxing. I was watching Roger Mayweather for like 2 hours today. But shout out to that legend, R.I.P. But boxing is mostly a skill set. It's not a discipline. And I tell people, and people who are boxers that I train boxers now, and they're telling me, like, yo, like, you do Taekwondo? And I'm like, yeah, I taught myself how to box. I never had somebody come up to me and be like, hey, throw a punch this way. I just remember one experience with this guy who's a Golden Gloves boxer, and his hands, and my hands are small even for my size. His one hand was the width of both of my hands.
Dang.
What?
Both my hands.
That's crazy.
When I had to grab his hand, like, I had to, like, spread it out. I had to peel I promise you, I had to peel my thumb to the side to try to, and I was like, imagine that coming toward my face with no glove on, or even with glove, like how Mike Tyson used to do it, just bang his knuckles all the way to the glove, so that way he could take. That's how he was knocking cats out, obviously, because he had power, but he was prepared to, like, kill cats. And, like, I'm like, imagine this guy, a little bit taller than me, with hands like that, and it's like one punch would take me out, because I don't have a chin built for that. But it's like, those are the guys you hear about getting in trouble. Those are the guys that are going to the bar, starting to fight, domestic issues. But you got, like, the formal aspect or formal systems, I find there's less of. It's not that it's not prevalent, but it's not nearly as prevalent. Almost entirely disparate. People that study formal systems of martial arts. So I think the skill set, being how something's being taught, makes a big difference, because you can teach boxing like a discipline, or you can teach boxing as, all right, I only care about what you're doing in the gym right now. Yeah. You guys seem to actually care about what happens to people when they're not on the mat. I remember talking to you. You reached out to me. I didn't even know how appropriate it was to reach out to you guys. I was like, should I add them on the gram? I don't know. I'm a white belt, because I know white belts that have added me, and I'm like, I won't purposely associate with them until they're about black belt. Because now we're in the same vicinity. Now it's like soldiers can't be, walking in the room with chiefs and generals. You know what I mean? We're not supposed to be hanging out. Like, so you guys never gave me that vibe, which is phenomenal. But it was important that I saw someone that looked like me. I don't know why my watch did that. That's my wife did that. But anyway, yeah, I thought that was just an incredible first experience for a martial artist to have, like, 28 years in the game, and I felt like I was a white belt back in Taekwondo again. That's how good it felt. So I came home, I told my wife the same thing, because we all go back to our girls, like, hey, look, I had it fun. She was like, okay, like, calm down. All right, cool, give me a hug, calm down. And I was still, like, looking up, what can I do? And I ended up teaching my sons too. I used to bring my sons on the calls, like with you guys, the classes. And
I remember.
I used to, they are like, they have that. If anything, I want them to have, like, that just, and they're doing fencing. They got boxing. They got taekwondo. They've got a tiny bit of jujitsu, but
They're all very well versed.
yeah, like I want them to have that because I'm like, I wish. Did you ever wish, I guess, Bart, at your stage? I say this now. Did you wish you had like a you almost when you were younger to bring you up in a sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Did you get what I'm saying? I didn't make sense to someone the other day, but I was like, I wish I had me back then when I realized I wanted to do this.
I think that all the time.
Same
All the time.
enthusiasm, and that's not disrespecting my parents. They were always present, came to all the tournaments and stuff. They just didn't have the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, like, I think our backgrounds pretty much are what's in demand because so many people are locked in the doors, don't want to come outside, or they're looking for a new activity to start. So would you guys recommend? Now, I know you guys would recommend Ronin Athletics, of course, but would you recommend getting started in jiu-jitsu from home?
Well, of
At this point in time,
100%.
Yeah.
we can't even see the end of the COVID thing, but just kind of getting your
100%.
POV.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, doing jiu-jitsu by yourself or, on Zoom, it's not the same as, in the gym. with
I
other
miss the
people.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, if that's the only thing we can do, it's still better to practice the movement itself, which is a big thing. Like, me and Johnny, we started doing, we train a little bit just the movement aspect of jiu-jitsu, like the get-ups, like, triangles, like doing the different types of crawls, which is part of the movement that we use in jiu-jitsu. And, it's not, and also just to kind of keep in touch with other members of the gym and
Yeah.
other people. That's a big part too, because when we relocated our gym and we opened back up, we want to stay in touch with those people. We don't want to kind of like burn bridges. We know we're not like, we're gonna open up the gym like, okay, bye guys, see you later.
Right.
We want to stay in touch with them. We want to see them. We want to see how they move. We want to, if they have any questions, we want to answer them.
Get them ready for testing.
Yeah.
Yep. It's important. And because some parts of the world they can't even like open up their schools like at all, like, or especially like overseas, like they have lockdown like pretty much at certain points of the day.
And if we were just a gym, we would just close, and
Right.
the next time you'd see us is when we open up.
Right.
But because we're it's more like a culture thing. Then
Yes.
we stay in touch with people.
That's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Well, where can people find you? Because you guys are incredible and phenomenal instructors. I'm telling you that from having a lot of years in the game. But where can people find Ronin Athletics? I know we were talking in the elevator about you guys relocating from one location to the next. When can we expect you guys to open back up? Where can people find you, locate you, et cetera, et cetera?
So on Instagram, our Instagram is Ronin Athletics.
Gotcha. Make sure you write that down. Say it one more time, Johnny.
Ronin Athletics, RONIN Athletics.
Beautiful.
And we're actually relocating to 39th and
Madison.
39th and Madison.
Perfect.
We were previous located on 36th and 8th Avenue.
Gotcha.
But now we're moving to 39th and Madison, much more nicer area, much more calmer, especially with the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
Downtown has gotten a little,
Yeah.
hectic, but the area is much more better. The space is beautiful.
Yeah, I saw
Like,
a couple of previews. The parking
we're
was
excited.
The parking was the hardest thing about getting upstairs. Sometimes I'd be downstairs for like 20 minutes trying to find parking. But all right, that's what's up.
Yeah. So we're actually gonna be moving stuff in next week, if I'm not mistaken, and then we
Dope.
should be getting ready for like a soft opening,
Nice.
probably like the end of March,
Nice.
early April.
Beautiful. You guys are following all like the COVID protocols and
Yep.
everything, all
Yeah,
sanitation. I
definitely.
know you guys always had a clean gym. When I walked in, it always smelled like Lysol and Pine Sol. So
Yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah,
That's actually one of my favorite parts of the day.
Yeah.
Cleaning the mats afterwards.
do you like that?
I find it like meditative. Legit.
I'm like that. But because typically at the end of the class, let's say I've taught in rooms of 200 people or whatever. I teach a class or whatever. I'm like, all right, nice little event, and then everybody breaks out. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I told someone, I was like, yo, lock the door. I was like, all of y'all are sweeping. Pick up something, wipe your area, even if it's just your area, your little mat. Wipe your little mat down, wipe your area down, because it's important to keep the space clean.
Yeah, that's actually part of the process at the main headquarters of GU.
Yes.
They have people sweeping.
Yes, it's very
Everybody's
it's very
doing their part.
important. Very important. It's very, very important to be sanitary, especially with everything going around. But guys, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank
Bart,
you.
Thanks
oh
for
my
having us,
God,
Chris.
Johnny, thank you so much for lending you guys time. Again, this is the conclusion of episode 5 of the Mastery Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Master Chris Malarkey. You can find me on Instagram, Master Chris Malarkey. My website is mastercm.net. That's mastercm.net if you want any links to personal instruction, taekwondo, boxing, general fitness. I do not have as much Brazilian jiu-jitsu background as these gentlemen have, so I don't offer that. But I can definitely round out your experience. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We're out. Peace.